Alrighty, I think we've started. Hopefully, we can start to see some participants rolling in. Welcome, everyone. We thought we'd jump on a little bit early to give you guys all some time to settle in. I'm sure everyone's smashing lunch while we're doing the webinar over this lunch period, so I do apologize. Just checking, is anyone able to chat in the chat just to make sure that we have got people in here, then you can hear us all correctly, you can see us all okay? There we go. Thank you, Emma. Got some participants in the chat. Can see in here. Thanks, Sinead, all the way from Sydney. Well, what we might do to get us started. Hello. I know, here we go. They're all coming. All right, what we might do while we're waiting for our official start, we've got a little bit of a poll prepared. So I'm just keen to see where everyone's coming from or tuning in today. So I'll launch that now, and I'd love for you guys to give me some answers just before we kick start. Oh, Victoria going crazy. New South Wales, Queensland, Adelaide, Perth, Tassie. Nice. No one from Canberra. Oh, Canberra, here we go. Come on, Northern Territory. We just need one. That's it. Easy. Oh, Victoria jumping up. I can see. This is fun. It's almost like an Olympic swing race. I'm just
Yeah,
seeing
that's pulling it
lines
right.
go. It's great. Easy. Jumping all in. Beautiful. So for anyone who's just joined, again, apologies for the over lunch webinar time. Hopefully you're smashing down. I've got a Caesar salad ready to go when we're finished. So I won't bore you with the pleasure of watching me eat today. But yeah, we've got some exciting things to deep dive. It still looks like Victoria's coming up as our highest attendance area for today, followed very closely by New South Wales, Queensland and Perth on par, and then a few from Adelaide, Canberra and Tassie. Still no one from Northern Territory just yet. But thank you all who have answered our poll so far. For anyone to just joining in, feel free to jump in on the poll and we will get started in about 1 minute. But yeah, what's for lunch for you today, Lauren? Have you had something to eat already?
Good question. No, I just got back from a walk trying to
Oh, good. Got the steps in already?
do 10,000 steps. So yeah, I was doing that. So no, I haven't even thought about lunch yet, actually.
Of course.
Yeah.
Easy done. All righty. Got quite a few in already, which is awesome. 52. Victoria still jumping up. New South Wales coming in hot behind on their heels.
Like a horse
All
race.
righty. Well, what we might do is kick off. So again, everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Very exciting to have our first. I think this is actually the first ever venue-specific webinar that Easy Weddings and Venue Crew has ever hosted, which is super cool. So thank you all for jumping on. We've had over 200 registrants today, so we're very keen, and clearly we've got a pick and mix of where everyone's joining us from. So Lauren and I have some pretty exciting content to share with you today. Just to give you a bit of a structure of how today's going to run is we're going to kind of cover off the 6 key steps and the structure of how we would suggest to run your wedding site inspections in your venue to give you the highest chance of conversion. We've got plenty of time for a Q&A, so please keep all of your questions to the end, or you can pop them in the Q&A section rather than the chat. You'll see that you've got a Q&A button down the bottom as well. So pop them in there and we'll do our best to get to as many as we can at the end. And then the extra special part of today is we are excited to share some information with you, which I will leave to the end of the webinar, but we're very excited to kind of first announce, sneak peek some exciting news to share. So we'll jump on into it. But I guess for anyone who doesn't know, I wanted to introduce you to my fabulous co-host today, Lauren Samuels. Hang on, my mouse is on my wrong screen. Here we go. And Lauren, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Darcy. I'm excited
Of
for this
course.
presentation. So I'm Lauren Samuels. I'm the director of the Vibe Tribe, and we're an agency that specialises in marketing and sales services and education, but specifically for the wedding, events, and hospitality industry. So I'm super passionate about client experience and humanising our marketing and sales processes. So that's kind of our sweet spot. So yeah, that is us, and I'm excited because we know each other pretty well and got
We
over
do.
15 years in the weddings industry. So yeah, this is definitely my jam.
Absolutely. So yes, Lauren, you're right. We've known each other for I think it was 7 years. We've figured
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always nice to have a familiar face on a webinar. So thanks for joining us today. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Darcy. So I'm our B2C manager here at Easy Weddings and Venue Crew. So I manage our venue partnerships team. So we work with a lot of the amazing venues, which I hope you're all on today. And my team speak directly to couples planning their wedding around Australia and kind of recommend the best suited venues to their needs and work with the client through from if initial inquiry all the way to contract signing, deposit paid. And then we've also got our awesome directory partners as well. So I kind of work closely with Simon L and the directory team. So that's my role here at Easy Weddings. Prior to that, I did work at where did I start? The National Trust of Australia Victoria was my first kind of introduction to wedding venues back in 2014. So I looked after Ripponlea Estate and the gorgeous Como House and a few other properties around Victoria. I then was very fortunate to join the Showtime team, and hopefully there's some of the Showtime team here today. So wedding producer at Showtime Events and Cargo Hall. And then lastly finished up at Park Height, Melbourne. So I was there for about 4 years in a wedding sales executive role as well. So lots of different venues, lots of different styles. So they've kind of all helped me coach me along today, which is where some of the anecdotal stuff will come from. But as we are kind of venue specific today, what's your venue journey, Lauren?
Yeah, so similar to you, I was venue side as well. So from sales executive type roles, I did start out on the floor and coordination. So I was with Leonda by the Yarra for a good 6 years, which was amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, Phoenix Events, Maple Event Group. Before that, I was up in the Dandenongs with Leonda by the not Leonda, with Lyrebird Falls and Poets Lane. And then as an agency, we've been really lucky to work with amazing brands like Food and Desire, San Remo Ballroom, Rochford Wines, Bramley. Like we've ticked off some amazing names, which is really exciting. Like we get to work hand in hand with all the event pros. So yeah, I know this world well, and you and I have had so many discussions, and I think you're going to have to keep us on check because we can talk.
Of
um,
course, yes. I will be
and
timekeeper today. So if you see me
yeah,
looking at my other screen, it means Darcy, we need to be on time.
I know, because we could talk about this forever. I think we both have a passion for the venue side, and really,
100%.
yeah, curating those experiences for people. So, yeah, I'm excited to share.
Awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover off kind of the six key steps or how we think to best structure a site inspection. That's really going to lead to that highest chance of conversion. So we'll run you through each step and there's a little bit of homework and key takeaways from each point, but we'll leave you with a hot tip for each section. So step number one is all about the sense of arrival. So we've got to start even long before they've even met you at the door or wherever you're meeting them in your venue or hotel or space. It's all about that sense of arrival. So the key considerations here and what you need to be thinking about is who is actually greeting them at the front entrance. If it's not going to be you, is it your front office or reception team? Do they know who is coming? Can they address them by name? Will you be waiting outside? Is the venue or the space easy to locate? So have you preset them some maps and instructions of how to get to you? And so important, are you providing parking? Or if you cannot provide parking, do you have any recommendations close by? The amount of times I hear my team on the phone trying to teach someone where the closest Wilson car park is or secure car park because they don't know where to park and they'll say, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to make the tour today because I can't find any parking. So if you're in a position to provide parking, that is so important and something that I think is a bit overlooked. But Lauren, tell us about, sense of arrival and things you've been doing with your venue partners that you're working with across
Yeah.
the Vibe Tribe brand. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, we train on this a lot because I just think it just sets the tone from the start. And you know yourself, like when you walk in and if someone's opened the door for you, or they've met you at the car park, or if it's a rainy day and there's someone welcoming you with an umbrella because you don't have to try and race in, like all of those create such a wow from day dot. So I think, yeah, being really like conscious of what that experience feels like, but also I think it goes back to before, your comms in the booking process. So like confirming the appointment, the directions, like you said, the parking, and making that clear. So whether that is a little voice note or a map on your email and things like that, so people don't have to guess. Like I just think clear is kind. So if we can just make it super clear how they're going to be welcomed, it sets the tone. But also something we do like internally at the Vibe Tribe for our own events and client experience is we call it FBI. So like feel bloody incredible. And so it's this little
Nice.
sheet that we make. Yeah. And it's, I could stalk anybody online. So I just need like a name and I'm good to go. So we'll put like, if we can pull a picture so the person at reception knows their face and they can be like, good morning, Jane and Michael, or like, we're not having to say, oh, who are you here to see? Like, we already know who they're here to see. We create that wow from the start. So I think if you've got the ability to, take the time and do some research, that always stands out.
100%. And if you're not even in the position to honestly just standing there with a clipboard, or maybe it's your compendium or whatever you're holding at that point with your notes or the iPad, you look pretty important. People usually come up to you and say, hey, Darcy, by chance.
Yeah.
So I think that sense of arrival is so important. I've always kind of been trained, and in every venue, if I can be at the front door, I will. And
Yeah.
if I can't, my reception team know who is there and what to do. And we'll cover this off in kind of a few points later. But the biggest thing as well is if you are doing back to back, which we know we love to jam pack our Saturdays, making sure that whoever is greeting, if that's your operations manager, your restaurant manager, your front office team, like, have they got a waiting area that they can put them if you are running a little bit late? So think about all of those key touch points, but
Yeah.
don't forget sense of arrival. So I guess
Absolutely. And the
exactly.
thing I was going to say is
Okay.
even helpful if we can get somebody outside of your world. So because I think we see our own venues day after day and we miss certain things. So if you can get someone with a fresh perspective in that can give you some feedback, and if they can work out how to find the right space to go to, or can they find reception? And if not, do we need to relook at our signage? Like, I think just we spoke about this, Showtime do it well. Often they will personalize that big front sign to say like
Yes,
welcome to the couple's name, and so already they're like, whoa, like
of
amazing. It
course.
feels like this probably is our place. Like they already,
What a nice touch point. Exactly. Or even if you don't have the luxury of the movie board that Showtime have, what about your plasma screen that you use for your seating charts or your welcome sign? Wherever that welcome sign is for the event that night is, could you pre-program all your site inspections? At 1 o'clock, it shows Sarah and Tom. At 2 o'clock, it shows Lauren and Jeff,
yeah,
or whatever it might be. Imagine that little detail when they're walking in. They're just going to be like, wow, I feel so special.
yeah,
So I guess the hot tip that we want to leave you with for this section is the number one pain point that we hear from couples post tour is they didn't know where to go, or the person they asked for at the venue was not there or unaware that they were coming. So the amount of horror stories that we come into on a Monday where couldn't find where I was going, couldn't find parking, didn't know who I was meeting with, the person I was supposed to meet with wasn't there. So just think about who is greeting them. And if it's not you, make sure that that experience is covered and considered to ensure that sense of arrival.
yeah,
Cool. So, step number two, we're flying through. This is awesome. It's all about getting to know your client, but also importantly, letting them know you as well.
yeah,
So, buying phase, I think this is so important. It's a bit of an icebreaker, but it's also super key to finding out in your sales funnel key information that can be used later on down the track when closing, or even in the planning stages once you have secured that business. So there's really nothing wrong with asking, is this the first venue you've looked at, or have you going to a few venues today? However you want to frame that
yeah.
conversation, but
I think,
knowing where they are in the buying phase,
yeah,
crucial, would you say,
yeah.
Lauren?
It just, yeah, it sets you up to really know how you're going to play the rest of that, that process. Because if it's the very first venue, if you come at them with like the list of inclusions plus all the add-ons and upgrades and all the possibilities, like they're just overwhelmed. It's just too much. And so, but likewise, the other way, if they've been to a few venues, you'll also notice that sometimes they start using the jargon that we use, or they'll ask about bump in times or certain things. So you can see
You
that
include security. I
yeah,
love it.
exactly. They know the questions to ask. So again, judging where they're at really helps you to curate that experience. But I think, yeah, don't be scared to ask, like, where else are you off to today? Or especially like when we work with our Yarra Valley venues, I'm like, I always say, are you making a day of it? Like, are you heading to any other wineries, or, where else is on your list? I think as long as you're casual and, it's doesn't feel like an interrogation of like, where else is on your list?
Where else and what time? No, but
Yeah,
sometimes I'd even do it as, how long have I got you for, guys? Do you need to run off anywhere else today? And then they're going to kind of divulge to the plan for the rest of the day. But
Yeah.
even, when I was fortunate enough to be at the gorgeous Park Hyatt, it was like perfect. They'd come in reception, I'd be greeting at the door. We'd go to the tea lounge, grab a coffee. And as we were heading down the stairs to, for anyone that doesn't know the hotel, very Art Deco style ballroom, I'd start to ask them what venues they'd been to already. And the reason that I did that as well is like if we were looking at something completely different. So not only is that going to tell you that the budget that they're comfortable with because of the venues that you're hearing, your competitor set,
Yeah.
where they're sitting pricing wise, but also the style. So if we're walking down the stairs to this Art Deco ballroom and they're just telling me that they've been to the Stones of the Yarra Valley, which is a gorgeous winery, I'm going to be like, okay, cool. So this is completely different. And I'm
Yeah.
going to be kind of preempting their needs and explaining to them that we are going to be looking at something a little bit different to set that expectation before we go into the room. But I'm also dinging, okay, cool. So if we're looking at a winery versus a CBD venue, I'm going to be talking about the accommodation on site, the ease of transport. Someone can Uber in, they can tram in, they can train in. I'm going to be talking about, logistics and not having to bus everyone out to the Yarra Valley. So I already know my key touch points just by asking one simple question of where
Yeah.
else have you looked so far?
And there's so much, like we were talking about this, just having connection points, because once you have a few of those, you can ask those questions without it feeling like, yeah, too much. So I think like we train on this a lot. What are the questions and what are the things that you have in your experiences that you can connect with people? Like, because often there is some silence or we need some icebreakers because we've all had the calls where they just give you nothing. And so you've got to find something that then they get excited about. So for me, I write it all down. Like, my sister's a school teacher. So often if I'm doing a venue site tour during school holidays, I'm like, school teacher? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, I totally get it. My sister's the same. She's always trying to fit in all her appointments. Or, my husband's Indian. I got married at Leonda. Like, that was amazing when I worked at Leonda because they could see the genuine love that I had for the venue because I chose it for myself. And I'm like, you could do this and imagine this. And like, so we all have those stories. So I think making sure we know, like, what do I have up my sleeve that I can chat at any point to connect on a personal level and then to dive deep into those questions that, yeah, help you kind of signpost where someone's at in the journey and what they're actually loving. Because often, like, we see enough of these couples to understand what they're really saying sometimes. And so when they're like, oh, I'm loving it because of A, B, and C, we kind of clock and go, all right, well, they're loving that there's no pillars in that room, or, maybe they were looking at wineries because they're wine drinking people, and so amazing wine
Aren't we
drinking people.
all?
That's a technical term, but I mean, you might have an incredible wine list, and you're a
Correct.
CBD venue. You can play to your strengths when you make those connections. So
100%. And
important.
exactly, like all of those, my husband is Indian. I got married at Leonda. My sister's in her report writing season as a teacher. That's all an example of signposting. So we're
Yeah,
already there at point two, which is perfect. Thank you, Lauren. And that's the thing, right? Get to know them, but also let them get to know you. So, so often if I'm asking about their family background, which jumping to our next point, they'll often ask me, what's your family background? I'd often get mistaken for Italian or Greek, and I'd go with it if I needed to. No, but I'm very Australian. There's nothing else about me. But, I'd kind of signpost and share, if, the groom was a plumber. Yeah, so is my husband. I know all about it. I have to hear about it every day or whatever that might be, or renovating our home. Because as we know, I think the average bride in Australia at the moment is 33. Average groom is about 32 and 33. So naturally, they're probably starting a family or want to. They might be renovating their house or buying their first home. Like these are all things that we've either gone through or might be going through in our lifetime as well. So we can absolutely signpost with that, but it also gives you an insight into their life. So if they're saying, "Oh yeah, we're actually going to an auction this afternoon." On Monday, when you do your follow up, you're going to be like, how did the auction go? What happened? Tell me everything.
that
But all
is
those key notes are so important.
they are so important. Like I would argue and say one of the most important, because your follow-up compared to every other venue, if you're the only one that's got that information and bothered to connect on that level, then your follow-up is going to feel so different because you have, like, it feels a bit more friendly, and you can ask, oh my gosh, when are we moving in? Like, do we get the house? Or if you know their pet's name, you can be like, now, what does Ronald think about you getting married here? Like, you can have those deeper conversation and connection points that your competitors don't. And this is the thing. a lot of, sadly, a lot of venues are missing the mark on this. So, I mean, just by asking those questions and remembering the information, like I would leave, and we teach this as well, like go away from your site and 5 minute brain dump, literally like they got engaged here, thinking honeymoon in Europe. He's a teacher, she does this. Like I could write a really brief bio on the
Yes.
couple. So
Yes.
because at the end of 8 appointments, I'm like, who was what? But I
Yes.
mean, if I've got it there ready to go, especially if I've done my research before, and I'm like, yep, like it just, yeah, it really tailors my approach post that.
Personalization, absolutely.
Um,
And you're going to stand out amongst or the masses, you should say,
yeah,
because they've likely seen multiple venues that day. But even just to the point of, for any of the sales managers on the call today, how I structure my team, if I have someone that's, always down to business and gets straight to the sale and the key aspects of the packages and pricing, I challenge them with, I want to know 5 things about that couple that have nothing to do with the wedding. I want to know what they do for a job, how many kids they have, what are the kids' names, how old are the kids, do they have any pets? Like from asking, do you have any children? You're going to learn if they have any children, their names and their ages pretty quickly. There's already 3 of your 5. So it's so important. And those details, how they're translated back into the sales funnel is super important. And then the last bit before we jump to step number 3 is that family background. I always say to my team, do not be afraid to ask this question. It is pivotal, I should say, and it shows that you care and also demonstrates a huge amount of trust because of your knowledge. So, a bit of homework from today, if you don't already know, I guess, your key cultural backgrounds that are generally attracted to your venues, and you don't know a little bit more about kind of wedding traditions and needs for those
what's
specific
important?
cultures.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Exactly.
what are those elements that are really important? Sometimes it's the orientation of the room or special
Correct.
dates, and just knowing that as a sales team, yeah, again, is such useful information in that process.
Exactly. Like I
Yeah,
said, my first venue, Ripponlea Estate. So the first thing I learned was all about a chuppah and what is required at a kosher wedding, what kosher friendly versus
yeah,
kosher strict is. I learned all about the bedekin, so the pre and post ceremony traditions. And then at Park Hyatt, I was doing a lot of Indian weddings, and I was very fortunate to have an incredible Indian chef, Yazad, at the time. So I could, quickly text him on the site and say, this is the region that their family's from in India, and he'd turn around next 5 minutes, he'd walk into the ballroom and start saying, oh, do you know such and such, or have you been to here before, or I can do this dish for you. And it was just a huge touch point. But just, even by me saying, oh, are you having a sangeet? Is that something that you consider here, which is a pre-wedding function for an Indian background? Or, are we doing a non-veg or veg menu? Do we need to do it Indian catering? What are we doing here and there?
yeah,
Mandap setup? Do you need, a flame for the Havan? They would just be like, wow, okay, Darcy really cares about my cultural needs and, actually is invested in making my wedding specific to my needs.
yeah, absolutely. Love it.
Exactly. So look, I think what we've all kind of covered off from these 3 points, your buying phase, your signposting, and your family background, notes are key. And I think that the tip that we need to leave you with today around that is, where are these being stored and how are they communicated or translated to the planner or the coordinator once they're locked in? So if you do the sales end-to-end planning journey yourself, that's great. You know the couple in and out, but you don't want the planner to have to establish the relationship all over again and the couple to have to repeat themselves. So, I'd have my handwritten notes if that's going into your CRM, or how are you storing that information. So if the client or the planner picks up that folder, they know Tom and Sarah, they know that they're a plumber and a teacher, they know that Sarah's in report writing season and not to bother her, they know that they're renovating their home. Like, they
Is
know
that
all that key
a lot of
information.
client experience from, and because we used to find this, like, um, you don't want them to feel like they've signed, they've picked their date, they found their dream venue, and they've paid, and then it's crickets. And often that
Correct.
happens just naturally because their wedding's not for another 12 months, or there's some time before the next stage actually kicks in or the planning starts. But I mean, when you have that wealth of information, there's so many touch points you can build in,
Mm.
to then be like, okay, next time it is holidays again, that's a good time to reach out, or, we can send our latest blog or things like that.
Of course.
So yeah, what you do with the information is, yeah, key.
Yeah, because straight away that plan is going to say, "Oh, so I understand our planning means you're going to have to be in school holidays.
Yeah.
What September school holidays are coming up, what days work for you?" So that they're going to be like, "Oh, wow, they took the time, they remembered. The venue really cares about my specific needs." So yeah, notes are key, is the key takeaway point from step two. So, jumping to step three is all about features and benefits of your venue or space if you've got multiple spaces with the venue. So, Lauren, tell us all about landmarks and what is an Eiffel Tower moment?
Yeah, so this is something we teach because I think we all have this moment. Like anyone that's been married, you'll know that you kind of end up with like one or two key photos that you post every anniversary.
Yeah.
So for me, one is outside at Leonda, overlooking the Yarra with the boat and all of that. And another is in their beautiful kind of pre-dinner area with a piano. And we just recycle them because they're like our key hero images. So I think if you can create these moments in your venue experience, so when you're doing your tours, like where are those moments where people stand in your venue and they're like, wow, I can picture myself here. I can picture, our photos or this moment. And normally it's, one of them is always your wow factor. So whether that's like a grand chandelier or an amazing view or floor to ceiling windows, like there's always those key, go tos. But then I also like to point out, like, again, that entrance and arrival. If you've got
Mm.
your pre-dinner area and normally there's a curtain that, closes off the rest of the room, and on the night you have that dramatic entrance, can you create that during your site inspection? So they walk in and the doors open up and they see the room for the first time, or the curtains pull back. Like it just sets the tone from the start. The other one I love is to walk them to where the bridal table is and
Yes.
stand them behind where they would be seated at the night. Because I
Yep.
think that's always the best view. They get a really good sense of like, oh yeah, I can kind of see us here, like our bridal party, our family. And I point out, your VIP tables are normally here and here. And, you've got a great view of everybody. Everyone can see you for speeches. Like you can really paint that picture. So I think with venues, if you can find 3 to 5 of those like key landmarks that you go, all right, this is almost the way I do the tour, and I stop here, here, and here, and give them that moment. And
Yeah.
sometimes you like when I'm taking them behind the bridal table, I just leave them for a second as well to let them kind of melt into it and be like, yeah, I can see this for us.
Yeah, they picture it. They picture
Yeah.
themselves in that moment. And I think I was telling you about my Eiffel Tower moment,
Mm.
Lauren, when I got married. We got married at the State Library, and when we
Yeah.
booked in, would have been 2019. They were
Yeah.
going through the transformation of the library, so we couldn't see the space. There was, I think, one render, but it was
Yeah.
completely locked up and in construction. So the only way that I was sold into the venue was that the library team did have a photography tour. So there's like 5 key touch points of where you'll have your photos prior to your reception. And I was sold. Didn't even see the room, had no idea what view my bridal table would be, which, where, or whatever. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, sold. Eiffel Tower moments, for someone who's in the industry, I was absolutely sold by those sales
Yeah.
techniques.
Love it.
So they did exactly essentially very well. But I
Yeah.
think, all of the things that you've mentioned, those great views, chandeliers in the ceilings, whatever that might be, like those are incredible features of those venues that you've mentioned, like, San Remo Ballroom, their beautiful chandelier. But I guess, it's really important, and I'd probably say homework piece number two to take away from today is features versus benefits of your venue. So a feature is those incredible views, if we're looking at Lunaloo in this picture, that view of the Sydney Opera House, unparalleled. But it's what are the benefits of your venue? Is it Leonda's free parking? What is the benefit to the client of your venue? So
Yeah.
knowing the difference between your features and benefits is key, but also go away. If you don't know them, go away and figure out what are your features and are your benefits, and make sure that they are in your general site inspections. You're constantly either pointing to them, you're literally letting the couple experience them in it, like Lauren said, put them in the seat on the bridal table and get them to feel that moment.
And your benefits are normally those tick box ones, like, or that they're
Yes.
in your package. They all make up part of the journey and the package and the whole experience. But I mean, your landmarks or your features are often the emotional side, and those they create that wow moment. So yeah, you need a mix of both, but I think you're right, being really clear on what those are, and
Exactly.
especially compared to other venues and your competitors.
Exactly. So back to
This is
step
really,
two, what venues have they seen and why are your benefits going to be important to
yeah,
them? So is
because
it the accommodation? Is it the parking? What is it?
exactly. Accommodation is such a winner. Like the fact that you can show them that and explain how that would work on the night and they can, enjoy the space, but then they're right there. Like there's just so many benefits. But also things as simple as I used to be like, there's no pillars in the room. So everybody has a great view. Like if I know they've been to a venue where there's a couple of poles and things, and I think they're not things that people would realize. Like we've got to remember often they're only doing this for the first time. So they don't
Right.
know what to look for. They wouldn't automatically go, oh yeah, actually all those, every table that's behind one of those pillars does get a bit of an obstructed view of the dance floor or different things. So again, you're not going to highlight someone's flaws, but you can absolutely highlight what features work for you and why they work well in general for a wedding.
Easy.
Yeah.
Definitely. So look, you probably saw me timekeeping. I told you we could talk.
Sorry,
Lauren
I
and
know
I
we
could
talked
talk
about.
for days.
Yeah.
So we'll quickly jump into step four, and I'll definitely leave you with some more homework to take away today, guys. So step four is all about that package customization. So echoing back those customizations you think would be relevant. So that's why all of that fact finding in your buying phase and your signposting is so important, because perhaps they've told you that, as I mentioned, they're Indian background. So you're going to be talking about how that menu is delivered, how that's presented, the region that they're from, and the family experiencing of those dishes that might be, closer to home. So how do those come back into the customizations? But Lauren, talk us through how, you normally do that. I know you love the word custom. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think often we overcomplicate it and think, oh gosh, we have to create something completely unique for a couple. But often they just want to feel like they haven't got exactly what the person before or after them has. So
Yep.
I think knowing how you can pull things in and out of your packages, like if you've got your standards, but then you can tweak one or two things. So knowing that they're a couple that loves the dance floor and entertainment, and they are not one for formalities, and they're like, how can we design it so everyone's on there for the most amount of time? You might suggest like roaming desserts or having a gelato cart, or that they don't have to then sit down for another course, which extends
Yes.
the timing before they hit the dance floor. So again, I think you will have certain things. It might be late night bites or, changing up feasting style if they're really about collaboration and they want family and friends interacting and having conversations. Then it's just, we know and we have seen everything, but they haven't.
They
So
haven't.
what
Exactly.
feels like same old to us is a customization to them. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, so I think just knowing what capabilities you have for your venue, and then also just being excited for their ideas. Like, yes, it
Mm.
might be, the 100th time you've done a gelato cart, but I'm like, yes, amazing idea. Here's some names,
Champagne tower, whatever
correct,
it is.
whatever
Yes, of
they're.
course.
So I think, yeah, customization just makes and echoes back their feeling of wanting to have like a one of a kind of experience. And there's just, yeah, heaps of ways we can build that in for them.
Exactly. And I think, the other key part that we wanted to leave you with from step four is all about like being confident as a sales leader and what flexibility you have on the
Yeah.
spot. So no, not the case of I'll check and come back to you, like already having a library of sales tools almost preset, ready to go. Is it shoulder months? Is it your winter promo? So you've got a client that's walked in for a May wedding, but you hear the fact that they're going to Europe in July. So maybe you as part of your spying phase. So then perhaps you suggest a June date so that they can tack onto their honeymoon, which means bang, they already get $10 off, they get an upgraded wines package, they get accommodation, whatever it might be. So knowing what tools you have that you can pull out on the spot, if they go for a midweek or Friday over a Saturday, do they get a complimentary cocktail? What is something that for a low cost you can add in that is a value add? Is it a champagne tower? You already own the glassware, you already have the table set up for it, and they have champagne included in their beverage package. Why
Yeah.
not offer a free champagne tower? Very easy to curate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
I think, yeah, just knowing in and out what the capabilities are. And then if someone throws you something, again, you've got some time, or you can think, is that actually doable at our end? But often, like, we're magic makers. We can pretty much make most things happen. So, um,
Exactly.
yeah, I think people feel special. And again, it talks to that experience when they can feel involved in the process.
Exactly. So look,
Yeah.
the key takeaways, the homework is go and get your sales tools or your customizations or flexibilities that you can offer on the spot. And the reason that the people like the word custom, like Lauren says, is it feels tailored, it feels special, and this is the first time that they've done it. So use the word custom. It doesn't mean that you've got to recreate the entire package. It might just be one slight iteration, but it becomes custom.
Yeah.
So, step 5 is all around those next steps. So, anticipating their needs without them having to think about themselves. I'm going to swap it over and start with the hot tip.
Yeah.
But it's all about like, what are the next steps? It doesn't have to be asking for the sale straight away. You're going to tailor this approach based on the vibe you've gotten over the course of this whole journey. So, you already know, come up to step 5, okay, they're ready to sign today. They're still looking at another 6 venues. I'm still a couple of weeks off. Maybe I'll get them in for a second tour. But how do you like to structure next steps, Lauren, or what's your kind of go-to?
Yeah, I think having a call to action in mind, and you definitely figure out what that is throughout that appointment. I think, don't be scared to kind of let them know how the venue operates. So, tentatives and the
Mm.
time frames around that. And, we want to build in there some urgency and things like that, because it's often hard if you are the first venue, but it's also hard if you're the sixth venue. You want to build out and give them an idea of how it goes from here. So I'll often explain, once we put a date on hold, that will hold for 5 to 7 days or whatever it is for the venue. We would then take a $3,000 deposit, and that locks in your date, and we can get it, start the process and get them excited about that. And then I also give them foresight of like what comes beyond that. So, I connect you with your coordinator. You're officially, getting married with us, and you can explain how that process works. But if that feels too much for a certain couple, you might be like, why don't we get you in next week? Like, do you want to bring in one of your bridesmaids or your mum and dad? Like, if they're feeling like, I think I love it, but you know how sometimes it's like, I need someone else to, tell me
To
yes.
sign off on this, yeah,
Yeah.
or to match my enthusiasm.
Yeah. And again, if sometimes one partner comes in without the other, and so obviously they're probably not going to sign on the day without the other person seeing it. So I would just be like, okay, what dates work for your partner to get you both in again? And, we can show you through. I think just being clear with your call to actions. What do
Yeah.
you want them to do? And or what is the next expected step? But also
Mm,
from your end, are they going to hear from you? Are they going to get a walk away with a quote? Are they going to have a proposal in their inbox? Like, be really clear what the next step.
set the
And
expectation.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
But also,
And
don't be
that's
scared to ask for a sale.
no,
Like, I think,
exactly.
yeah, a lot of time in training, everyone's like, oh no one's going to book on the spot. Hell yes, they will. If you
Yeah.
can, if you've nailed the feels and they feel confident in the package and the inclusions, they feel aligned, and you can sense that. We can kind of be like, are we doing this? And they're like, we're doing this. And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
it might mean 20 minutes, you'll need to put the proposal and their quotes together and get them. But if they're in that mood, there's nothing, you could pop them up with a champagne and they're happy to wait for another half an hour while you do the paperwork and, take payment and all of those things. That absolutely happens as well.
Exactly. Or it could
Yeah,
be just, a simple one-page booking agreement that you can sign on the spot and then the full contract comes within 7 days.
yeah,
You can be strategic with that as well.
yeah,
But I think it's just so important. Like sometimes don't be afraid to play the long game. Like you said, if we did get so if you know they've seen the room, it's not a wow factor. You haven't had the room beautifully dressed because you didn't have an event on that night, say to that, like call it out for what it is. Look, I know that the room doesn't, it's not set today. It's very hard to visualize. I actually have a wedding coming up in 3 weeks that is, similar guest numbers to you, similar vibe. They're having this, and that. Would you guys like to come back in 3 weeks and see the room set up? Because straight away, that's commitment. They've committed to waiting another 3 weeks before they make a decision to see your venue. So you know that they're genuinely interested in your product because they're willing to wait to see it in another light. If they shut that down straight away, then okay, maybe I'm not the chosen one. So it's interesting how those questions can give you where they're feeling without saying, is this the one?
And
But
what
yeah,
you're saying, actually, just going back to that, because I think it's so important. often venues don't have the luxury to be set every weekend or have a mock setting. So I think, again, go back to your client experience. What can you do to make sure that you're still getting the most out of those? So is it having an iPad or a video that plays where it kind of walks them through the experience and you can kind of showcase that as you walk through the space?
Yeah.
Yeah, because those tools help. But also, don't be scared if someone hasn't signaled straight away, like I'm in or yes, I want a tentative hold. Don't put them in their pile of no
They're
follow
not
ups.
interested. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, they just might need a little bit of extra nurture and a little bit of love. But if you've created a great experience, I guarantee you the work, some of my sites, because, people buy off people they like, right? Even if they didn't book me, they'd have the decency to ring me and tell me that where they did book instead and why, or at least shoot me a text message.
yeah,
So that's why that relationship and experience is so important. But we'll just jump to step 6 because I'm conscious of our Q&A.
yeah.
So the final step before we jump into some Q&A is about the surprise and delight.
Oh my gosh, my
So
favorite
there's
topic.
so many good ways to do this. I've seen some amazing options, but it doesn't always have to be food and beverage, even though that is key. Everyone loves to be fed and everyone loves to be wined and dined. But like showcasing the magic that your venue can offer. It could be as simple as what Lauren mentioned earlier in sense of arrival, meeting them at the car with an umbrella. They're going to be surprised and delighted that you've done that. So, like, what is your surprise and delight? So, Lauren, is there any venues that you've seen doing this well, or what are the best ones you've seen so far?
Yeah, I've seen a few different ones, like a few wineries where then they treat the couple to a wine tasting afterwards, which is
Hmm.
always nice, and it's a win-win. They get to, sit and enjoy the venue longer, but also try the wines. Leonda, I go back to always because they do it so well. But I mean, their sales room has photos and a video, and like there's coffees and treats. San Remo do this really well. They have an incredible pastry chef, and so they offer sweet treats, and they can say this is made in house. Um,
In-house.
I've had other clients where they've given notebooks and pads or like a little checklist for wedding planning. Like those are the gift type of ones, but also surprise and delight can be that you do know their name upon walking in the door, or you open
Exactly.
those doors when they arrive. Like it can be the smallest thing, but it also might be like how you're presented, like the experience, I think, is often surprise and delight because sadly, at the moment, there's not a lot of that
No.
client experience. It's a pretty low bar. So I think you stand out when you put thought in.
100%. And it could be as simple as, I was very fortunate up at Park Hyatt. Mr. Walker was working there at the time, which was the resident Labrador. So if I learnt in my signposting phase that they were dog people, absolutely I was rolling out the dog. He's my sales tool. He's part of my library of tools to
A
use.
dog, a venue dog.
Yeah, so like so many wineries have beautiful venue pooches. I've seen it every time I'm coordinating. I'm like, oh my God, there's a dog, there's a border collie or whoever it is. Roll out the dog, roll out
Yeah.
the cat, whoever it might be, the llama. I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty of people, but so many things. So, recap, we've covered it off, sense of arrival, getting to know your client, the features and benefits and how they differ of your venue, package customization, next steps, surprise and delight. We will obviously send a recording of the webinar today, so don't worry that you have to quickly jot all this down. I know there's a lot of homework that I've given today. But yeah, wanted to jump into the Q&A. So if you should have a Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. Lauren and I would love to take the next 5 minutes or so to quickly answer some questions before we do our big reveal. So a couple of questions in the chat, but feel free to add them in now, guys, if you have any. Another one as well that I've just seen come through. Lauren, what would be the best time frame or how long do you suggest a site inspection should go for?
Yeah, okay, this is a good one. I would say at least 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. I think you're going to gauge it. If things are going well and they're asking questions and they're keen, then a 45-minute is, yeah, shows interest. And I think that's really positive. You don't, I also don't think you want to waste time. Like if you're getting the sense that they're not loving it, they're giving you donuts and this is, not working, be okay to wrap it up as well, like very lovingly, and give them the information they need. But I mean, if they're falling asleep during your site, then like there's no need to delay that. I think also giving yourself that 15-minute, buffer to write your notes, get yourself together before
Notes.
the guests arrive.
Notes are
Whereas,
key.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Another one, how would you handle the welcoming when you are receiving clients for site visits, but the restaurant is also open for restaurant patrons? Yeah, perfect. So obviously
Right.
hustle bustle restaurant. I think if I can take this one, I think
Yeah.
it's super important if you're in the middle of lunch or dinner service that you are at the front waiting for them. You don't want them to get confused and line up to be seated and the reservations manager or restaurant manager is running around. So I think you'd have to make sure that you are at the front door. If that's not possible, word up your operations manager or your restaurant manager or your greeter at the door. Here's a list of appointments I'm expecting. These are the couples coming through and where they can go and wait if that's the case. But I think, differentiating between a restaurant patron and a couple coming for a site inspection is so important because that's back to that sense of arrival. Where am I going and who am I meeting with?
One of our
Um,
married clients does this well. They actually have a designated wedding table. So even if they come into the restaurant, they're like, amazing, we've got a table for you. And your salesperson will come and meet you there. And so it makes sense. There's a table and it's a restaurant and all of that. And it just feels a little different. They have like a little centerpiece. But again, we're not asking their front of house team to do anything different other than seat
yeah.
them. But it's, yeah, part of that journey.
And I'm sure all of the waiters in that room know, okay, that's number seven, that's the wedding table. So they
Absolutely.
already know they're
Right.
clearly here for a site inspection. Oh, we're
Yeah.
getting flooded with questions. We might have to
Okay.
do some after hours.
Well, yeah,
Beautiful.
we can do rapid fire.
How to follow up if we don't hear from a couple after a venue tour. So firstly, I would say make sure you're following them up first. And as we said in the signposting stage, make sure it's unique. Don't just checking in. How did you go with the proposal I prepared? How was the auction? How is Harold the dog doing? What, how can you personalize that approach? But also listen to them. If they told you they're going away for a week, like time your follow up accordingly to the fact that they've just told you they're going to be on holiday for the next 2 weeks. But follow up is key, especially when you've met them in person. I instruct my team at bare minimum, they are doing three follow ups over the course of 2.5 weeks post site inspection.
Yeah.
They then go into a bit of a sequence nurture campaign if we aren't able to get on hold of them. But typically, you need to also use a mixture of phone, text, and email. You can't just rely on 3 email follow-ups.
And can I say now, video? Video is really
Video,
important
yes.
in 2025 and beyond. So if you're comfortable, I would be pulling out my phone and being like, hey guys, absolutely loved seeing you over the weekend. Here's a few things that I know we were talking about. I popped that in an email for you. Let me know how you're going. Like, of course, they're going to watch that video. There's no way you could get a video and not watch it. So, and I would say in a text with the video who I am and where I'm from. But also, if you don't want to do that on your phone, there's Loom and there's other video apps that you could
Yes.
record that and
Loom, we use Loom.
yeah, and then it's embeds into your email. So they
Mm,
could be at work, they can be wherever. And I would just keep it short and sweet. But I mean, again, that face to face, visual, I think is impactful versus another just touching base email.
exactly. Jumping in, this one's a good one. Our venue is a blank canvas with accommodation, but we don't have any in-house food, drink, no coordinator. How do I sell the venue when it's empty?
Yay,
Lauren,
yay.
how do you do an Eiffel Tower moment?
How do you create that? Comes down to the content that you've got. So I would be making sure that I've got video, photos, all of that on the iPad. And literally, as you're walking through that blank space, be like, this is the possibilities. Like, this is where you could have that moment. Or we generally set up the dance floor because often people can't picture it.
Mm,
So I think doing it in the moment so they don't have to, try and put the pieces of the puzzle together.
exactly.
Ideally, if you've got some budget, I would be creating a wedding video that really speaks to the experience. So it shows a real wedding, but from a venue point of view. So almost like takes you on a tour without someone being like, these are the major moments, but a video experience that creates that, that you could almost play in your site.
But I'd also be tipping with Bernadette's venue, you probably have some awesome locations on the property if it is kind of more of a blank canvas style homestead or something like that, where you're bringing in your own caterer. So, like, what are those key touch points? Is there a beautiful elm tree that people have the ceremony under? Like, walk them to all the ideal ceremony spots or the Eiffel Tower moments. A lot of people do family photos here because the lighting is awesome and you're getting the homestead backdrop. So, like, think about the other touch points that don't have to be just the reception space set up in an incredible light. So, we might jump to, we'll do two more before we're getting absolutely slammed with chats. This is awesome. Thank you, guys. Um, Hey girls, what information would you go through in a phone inquiry, and what info would you say for the venue tour? How to convert the phone inquiry to a venue tour? Oh, so going even further back, Amber. So how do you get them in for the tour? Good point. Lauren, any key points about this?
Yeah, if you can get them on the phone, which is win number one, um,
Tick.
definitely aim for that rapport building. Again, if you can have more information about how long they've been engaged, is it recent? If it is, you can hype it up and you can be like, oh my gosh, like, are we the first call? Amazing. But the simple one that I also love is like, what was it on the website that made you click and inquire? Like, and they'll
Mm,
tell you how to sell it to them.
yeah,
So they were like, oh my gosh, I was obsessed with the idea of arriving by boat. And you're like, cool, check. Like, they will often tell you why they love your venue. So if you can
exactly.
find ways to ask that quickly, then you know what to sell to. Yeah. So then I think just being super clear with like sending Calendly links, things like that to make the booking process easy for an appointment. Worst
Yes.
thing is if you're going back and forth, like, can you do two? No, I can't. Can you do 10? Like,
Yes. Offer
they,
two times. I always say that. Say, can I
yeah.
get you in this week for a tour? Does Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon work for you? Offer two times to get your best chance. But what I'd also say is, to Amber's question, just ask, especially if they start throwing customizations and really nitty-gritty questions to you on the phone, like how much if I remove this, how much if I remove that. What a great question, Amber. Why don't we get you in for a site tour? Are you free this Saturday at 2 or 3 o'clock? And you just kind of carry that journey of the phone call. There's nothing wrong with just asking or even just suggesting, shall we get you in for a venue tour? I'd love you to see the venue in person, or I can show you the accommodation rooms because they're really worried about how they're going to sleep 32 people on site. Exactly what Lauren said. They're already going to tell you what their problem is or what they need from you. So use that to your advantage and say, cool. So you want to talk about customizations of the Indian menu? Why don't we get you in and I can make sure chef's available at the same time? So you're kind of almost, I don't want to use the word tricking, but you're using the power of
Creative
knowledge of what they've
selling.
given you. Can I say tricking? Yes, I'm going to say
Creative selling, my friend.
All right. So, one more question. There's so many great ones on here. Sorry, guys. Um, just wondering how you would navigate when their budget is very different to what was expected. For
Yeah.
example, if the budget they've advised, Easy Weddings, thank you for using our brand, Charlotte, is actually for the full wedding rather than just the venue. And so we outpriced them. Okay, cool. So yeah, absolutely. The budget, is that your overall, my favorite question. So is that 30,000? Is that for the total wedding or just the venue, food and beverage? So that's super important. And there's nothing wrong with asking that at that point. This is what I have down. But also just asking, is there any flexibility in your budget? Like, to give you a bit of an example, our packages start from 205 per person. I noticed you've got 100 guests. So we're looking at about just over 20,000. Is that something that you're comfortable with? Like, just ask them straight out, because then straight away if they're like, absolutely not, I don't know why I'm here today, firstly tell me, because if my team sent that to you, it's not pre-qualified and I'd love to know about it. No, but more importantly, okay, great, well look, would you consider a winter date, because we do have an awesome winter package which is only 170 per head, or can we look at a cocktail wedding? Like, having those sales tools and the library of options that you have available to you is going to be able to help you switch out what you need to do to win that budget. And we always know you've got a buffer, right? People aren't going to walk away. They've come to your venue. They've already committed to coming to meet you. They're going to shift at least 5K from the budget that they originally suggested. So I think our survey tells us that couples spend 37% more. It's between, I think it's 28 or 37. I don't know why those numbers are screaming at me, but it's a lot. They spend a 20, even if it's 28% more than they originally budgeted for. So you've got room to move. But would you say anything else to that point, Lauren?
Yeah, my two things I would say, if it comes up consistently, look at your marketing. What's the marketing message? What's the vibe out there that people keep getting that impression? Do you need to be clearer? And the second thing is, when you create magic, somehow budget doesn't mean much. So I
Correct.
think if
Exactly.
you go all in that client experience from the moment they've arrived till that part of the process, it's not about the money and it's not about price, it's about value. And if they feel like the value you're giving both in the actual delivery of services, but also in the experience matches the price you're asking, then it becomes like a non-issue.
Exactly. And what do you include in that price point that they may have to pay for elsewhere? So again, if you have accommodation on site, that's something that is included in the package that they would typically have to pay elsewhere for. So
Totally.
what can you offer already in your package or part of your sales library that doesn't cost you much, that is going to mean dollar value to them? Because cocktail on arrival is a dollar value, an upgrade to a better room category isn't going to change the bottom line, if that makes sense. It's a nice to have, but it's not going to mean dollars to them when they're comparing apples for apples of their two preferred venues and just trying to decide on the one. So we are certainly running out of time, but there was some awesome questions in there. Just a quick throw one, best suggested CRM. Here at Easy Weddings, we use HubSpot. I find that it works really well and the user journey, and it's great for marketing as well. I think, Lauren, a lot of venues use Salesforce.
Yeah, there's such a mixture. I've used Salesforce, Ivy, Unglebook, like, yeah.
Ivy, yes, I've heard good things about Ivy and some of the cool
Yeah, they all have strengths
features
and
coming.
weaknesses. Some are great CRM, less good at reporting. Some are good for that and less good for marketing. So it just really depends. I don't think anyone's quite nailed it, but yeah, the fact that you have a CRM is a win.
Is
Yeah,
awesome. Make sure if you don't have a CRM, that is homework number 5. Get a
yeah.
CRM.
And then just
Um,
invest in learning about it and its capabilities. Often there's plugins and different things you can do to work around. So yeah.
exactly. Alrighty, so the moment we've been waiting for, what we wanted to share today to finish off and round off this awesome webinar. So, firstly, thank you, Lauren, for joining us.
You're
Always
welcome.
lovely to have you. But we wanted to let you know that Easy Weddings and Venue Crew, in collaboration with the lovely Lauren Samuels herself, we are actually launching the very first. Ooh, where is my mouse gone? It's in the Q&A. Ba ba ba.
Awesome.
Introducing the Easy Weddings and Venue Crew Training Academy. So if you liked what you heard today, you love the interaction, the banter with Lauren and I, very pleased to let you know that together we will be collaborating to offer a venue specific training academy. So site inspections is just one tiny little piece of the things that we would cover. So we have launched, it is live on the site. You will get some information about it after today, of a little bit more, but it's anything from a 1 day workshop to a 12-month campaign working with you in your venue collaboratively in your sales and marketing journeys. So some of the key USPs is all about that revenue boosting strategies from industry experts, ourselves, operational efficiency and team excellence. So, is your CRM optimized? Have you got a CRM? Importantly, all of those key pieces of the puzzle, and then market insights for smarter decisions. So, in some of the venue specific campaigns, we would do an audit of your venue, give you an idea of your competitor set if you don't already know it, literally ins and outs of everything. So, the good news as well is that we do have our very first workshop live and ready to go. So, that was part of the email today. Woo!
Brilliant.
So it is live on Eventbrite. So Lauren and I will be at the Oakwood premiere. Thank you for hosting us, Team Oakwood, on Thursday, the 1st of May. So we are running the first workshop in Melbourne. It is a 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. session. I've got a quick slideshow on quick screenshot on the right showing you cost, and all of the amazing things that we will be covering over the course of the day, which does include lunch. Sydney and Brisbane, you guys are up next, and we will have dates and locations sorted hopefully within the next week or two. So as soon as those are out, we will let you know. So there is an expressions of interest form on the page that you can fill in. But if you do have any questions, contact training@easyweddings.com.au. Just wanted to give you a really quick snippet. So that is exclusive knowledge. No one else knows about this. So you can probably see Lauren and I are absolutely
So
stoked to be doing
excited.
it
We've
together.
been sitting on this, and so it's like good to, yeah, be able to share it with everybody.
Easy. So look, we won't take up any more time of your lunch break, guys. Hopefully you took even just one little piece. Like I said, lots of homework, lots of things to consider. Site inspections is a pivotal journey that you should know your site inspection to booking conversion rate and how you can improve that, and also how it differs per rep if you do have multiple team members within your sales team, because there might be something that someone's doing really well and something that someone else needs a little bit of improvement from. So there's also that cross collaboration. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, contact training@easyweddings.com.au, but more importantly, we'll have the details out and the recording of the webinar to you today. So you can share with the rest of your team, or if you didn't get a chance to watch it and you are watching back, hello and welcome. Thank you so much, Lauren. Anything else you wanted to leave the group with?
Thanks for having me, and hopefully we'll see you at the workshop.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks all. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.